Kenny Pickett's made one whole NFL start. He did not produce one whole touchdown in that start. And yet, there's something there. What is it? Good morning to you. Good Thursday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Steelers. Comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into hockey and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Penguins and Pirates where you found this. Look, I know there are cynics. I know there are people for whom the results, whether it's from the team standpoint or from an individual standpoint, mean more than anything else, and they can't look past it. I get that. The team is 1-4. But to me, there's a different way of looking at all this. The team is 1-4, and the team is going nowhere. So at least begin to embrace that something new is happening, something better is on the way. Mike Tomlin said up in Orchard Park, and this kind of struck me because this isn't the sort of thing that tends to come from his mouth, that we know that better days are ahead. That's not a Tomlinism. That's Tomlin looking / hoping at that 38-3 loss to the Bills as being rock bottom. That's how that came across, at least to me. Doesn't mean I'm right. But, that doesn't seem like the worst possible approach at the moment. Anyone who's looking at the AFC North standings, anyone who's wondering what kind of hot streak this team would have to go on to get back into things isn't living in reality. That's not me being negative. That's 1-4. And that's 1-4 before you face Tom Brady and then the Dolphins and then the Eagles, each of the latter two at their place without TJ Watt. And I know this is not comfortable territory for people who follow this franchise, to say the least. To say the least. It's been a long, long time since anyone's had to look at a season that might end up the way this one's likely to end up. But along the way, the games that get played, the performances that get put on the field aren't a waste if they signify progress, if they signify improvement. If I sound like someone who also covers the Pittsburgh Pirates for a living, okay, go ahead and take it that way. Very different circumstances. But a similar setting and a similar approach when it comes to building up. You got to start somewhere. You got to start lifting people up. And on that note, I want to play you one thing that Kenny Pickett had to say in his meeting with reporters yesterday on the South Side.
It's just, unacceptable that, how we played last game. The standard has to be raised. We have to hold ourselves to a higher standard. And it really starts in practice. So we need better, practice habits that will translate over to the game.
Raising the standard. He's talking about raising the standard. He's made one NFL start. This kid is something else. What can you expect at Point Park University in downtown Pittsburgh? Respect, rigor, relevance. That's the Point Park pledge. You'll be treated with respect while being challenged and supported academically to graduate with career-ready, relevant skills. Visit pointpark.edu to learn more. Grumpy people. And that's what they are. And listen, if you're a grump and you're listening to this show and you take that personally, just remember, you're the one who took it personally, not me. The grumps, the people who are just constantly miserable, will see a scenario like this one and say, oh, you people are all fanboys or fangirls over this guy. You're looking for a hero. You're trying to find a positive spin. What you need to be talking about is this or that or this or that. That's fine, okay? I do my share of criticism on here. People everywhere do their share of criticism, whether they're paid for it or not. That's just natural. But it's also natural to look at what this kid can bring, and even what he's brought to date, and to be okay with it, and to hope or expect that it becomes more, because he himself gives off that vibe, not just off the field with what he's saying or his words, but on the field. Listen, I've spoken with him. I've spoken with his teammates. When he's on the field, they're aware of it. They're aware of this raised expectation. They might also be aware that with him out there, a lot of the excuses that they might have had for their own lousy performances go out the window, in particular the wide receivers, but also the running back, who incidentally was only being criticized on this program, to my knowledge, until Kenny came along and everyone all of a sudden starts looking at everything else that's wrong with the offense. But it can be a combination of all that. Regardless, it's all good. It's all good that this quarterback is in place at this time. We will be forever going back over those first few games and wondering if it was the right thing to do with Mitch Trubisky and not having Kenny start right away and everything else. I can see that. I can see that as being an argument in either direction. I'm someone who's not going to run from having said that I was okay with Mitch starting the season. I fell for the whole he was a number 2 overall pick and they fixed him in Buffalo and a lot of that stuff. I did. I'm here. I am owning it, as the head coach would say. But I'm also looking right now at this quarterback and what his virtues are and what he can bring. And it's legitimately exciting, and it's okay to be excited about it without having anybody drag you down over it. When we come back, J1Q. Portion of Daily Shot of Steelers is brought to you by our friends at Mike's Beer Bar. They're located directly across Federal Street from PNC Park. They are the one, the only, the premier destination in Pittsburgh for craft beer. More than 500 craft beers available, more than 350 of those local, and more than 80 of those on tap. Mike's can't be topped, not for beer, not for the awesome kitchen and menu that's available, and not for all the special events that are going on there. Check them out online at mikesbeerbar.com. Mike's Beer Bar, right across Federal Street from PNC Park. Today's J1Q comes from Rico, who asks, say that Mike Tomlin does fire Matt Canada and has Mike Sullivan serve as the interim offensive coordinator through the end of the year. Regardless of how well the Steelers play, does he dare promote Sullivan without considering fresh eyes, insights, or innovations from outside the organization? You know, Rico, my temptation, my instinct with your question is to say, whoa, hang on, you're getting way ahead of this. This isn't going to happen and everything else here. It just might. It just might. Let me start there, please. Because we are into, and I'm using this term a lot lately, uncharted territory. We don't know what Tomlin will do. I didn't know in walking into that press interview area in Orchard Park how Tomlin would conduct himself. I didn't know how he'd answer the question when I asked if he'd be benching some of his starting players. He surprised me. I didn't foresee Tomlin giving a vote of confidence to Canada as he did in the Tuesday press conference. That's a question that 99.999% of the time he'll shoot into the sun or throw it right back in your face. But he did. We are in uncharted territory. I was just trying to come up with a different term for it, but there isn't one. This is a weird time for the Steelers. We don't know what they'll do. So we don't know that the head coach won't get through, let's say, the next 3 games and say, hey, I've had enough. I'm sorry. I like this quarterback. I like some of the talent that we have around him, and we still haven't scored a first quarter touchdown. We're getting our brains beat in. We can't just do nothing week after week. We can't just move DeMarvin Leal 1 notch up the depth chart and say, all right, everybody, that's it. We're good. There's some accountability for you. He's going to have to do something. And if he does, to now finally get to your actual question, it's going to be Sullivan, meaning going to a temporary offensive coordinator, or maybe even just doing the play calling out of the existing book or whatever else it'll be. Because it has to be. It has to be. You cannot bring in like a prime of his life Bill Walsh off the street in the middle of a season and say, hey, Bill, call plays out of this book. First off, he'd laugh at it, okay? But never mind that. There just isn't really another way around it. It would have to be Sullivan. And you know what, though? You know what? I think you're right. The season would end. You would see some progress, if only because it's hard to imagine any coordinator anywhere is worse than Canada. Less imaginative, less ambitious, less adjusting, less anything. So you'll see an improvement. You'll see Pickett get stronger as the season goes along. You'll see George Pickens get stronger as the season goes along. You might see other players kind of, what was the term Kenny used there? Yeah, raising the standard. And in turn, what are you going to do? Season's done. This guy, Sullivan, was working with your rookie franchise quarterback from the beginning. They'll have built a terrific relationship up, which, by the way, they have. And then you're going to say, all right, see ya. We're going to go to the outside and hire some big hot name from some other team. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So that's part of what you get from this outlook that we're talking about here. And I'll bet it's something that Tomlin's thought about. I really believe that, because as you get through what looks like it might be a pretty long, ugly season, and you get to the other end of it, wouldn't you like to have all options open? I appreciate the question. I appreciate everyone listening to Daily Shot of Steelers. We'll do another one of these tomorrow.